Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good to see you. Good to be here. Good to be seen. All right, so let's get started, shall we? Come on. All right. Last week, we covered the flexor muscles of the forearm. And is this thing delayed for you guys too? All right, we covered the flexor muscles of the forearm. We will recall that all of your flexor muscles kind of all originated on the medial epicondyle of the humerus. So today we are going to be looking at the extensors. They will be found on the posterior side, and they are generally going to all originate on the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. So same bones as last time, pretty much the same bony landmarks as last time, except now we're focused more on the medial condyle. And of course, you guys have all these slides, so you guys can flip through the slideshows. If there's anything in here that we wanted to talk about or go over again. But since we are in the same area as last week, we've already talked about endangerment sites. We talked about the nerves. We talked about movements of the hand. So you'll pardon me if we just move right along. So the muscles for today, we have extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis. We have extensor carpi ulnaris, and we have extensor digitorum. These are the four muscles we're going to cover today. Before we jump into this, I do want to open the floor. Guys, how are we feeling about the flexor muscles that we covered last week? Everybody feeling pretty good? Good. Any ones we wanted to maybe mention, talk about? Alrighty then. Cool. All right. The primary landmark here is going to be the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. This one, if you bend your elbow and just kind of cup the elbow with your hand, feel around, you should feel 3 bony prominences, 1, 2, and 3. We are looking at number 3 on the lateral side. This will be kind of the boniest bump that you'll feel on the elbow. From here arises the common extensor tendon. This tendon will then subdivide into all the different muscles that will arise off of it. These muscles will become another tendon somewhere around halfway down the forearm, and then their tendons come in to connect at various places on the hand and fingers. You've probably become pretty familiar with one of them. If you do like your claw hand, you can see mine in the shadows pretty well. These little tendons that raise up on the back of your fingers. And then you can kind of see where these tendons kind of run through the dorsal side of the hand. There they are. So the first muscle is extensor carpi radialis longus. Now let's take a look at this name. Extensor tells me what it does. Carpi tells me what it does. So it extenses the carpals or the wrist. It is a wrist extensor. Because it is radialis, it is going to fall on the radial side of the forearm, so the lateral side, the thumb side. And longus tells me it has a counterpart, which will be shorter than it, which will be the brevis. This one will begin on the distal third of the lateral supracondylar ridge of the humerus, and it will insert at the posterior base of the second metacarpal. So your second metacarpal will be the base of the index finger here. Its action, as the name will imply, extensor carpi, when this muscle contracts, it will pull up on the wrist. So it is a wrist extensor. Since it falls on the radial side, it will also be involved with abduction, radial deviation. And since it does cross the elbow, it will assist in flexion of the humeral ulnar joint. But remember, guys, big muscles are Batman. So when we think about prime movers, we're thinking about things like bicep and brachialis. Extensor carpi radialis will assist as a Robin when you're lifting something really heavy and you need all your muscle strength to help bring that action to occurrence.
Hey, Dave, could you
Yes.
go over abduction and radial deviation again?
Yes. So let me stand up for a sec because we have to be in anatomical position. So in anatomical position, ulna is medial, radius is lateral. So when we look at adduction or abduction of the wrist, we are talking about ulnar deviation, adduction, or radial deviation, abduction. Since this muscle crosses on the radial side, it will assist with radial deviation, but I have to turn the back of my hand really for you. Well, there's radial deviation. So just like we've seen with other muscles, right? Because this muscle is lateral, it's going to be an abductor. Muscles with ulnaris in their name are more medial, so they will be adductors. But ulnar deviation and radial deviation are just other ways. We're still talking about AB and adduction. Cool. Cool. All right. Its counterpart, extensor carpi radialis brevis, arises from the common extensor tendon. So not the condylar ridge, but the condyle itself. Comes off the condyle and inserts at the base of the third metacarpal. So I can't show you the first. First, second, third. There we go. So longus inserts at the very base of the second metacarpal. The brevis inserts at the posterior base of the third metacarpal. Since it also crosses on the back side, it will be an extensor of the wrist. Since it crosses on the ulnar side or radial side, it will be a radial deviator. So in anatomical position, an abductor, and it will also assist with flexion. So it has the exact same actions as its longus counterpart. So crosses the elbow, makes it a flexor, crosses the wrist, making it an extensor, and it crosses on the radial side, making it a radial deviator. Extensor carpi ulnaris. This guy will insert at the base of the posterior side of the base of the fifth metacarpal, so the base of the pinky. This guy is crossing on the ulnar side. So on the back, it's an extensor. On the medial side, it's an ulnar deviator or a wrist adductor, adductor. And just like all the others, it arises off the common extensor tendon. Good stuff so far? Good stuff so far, everybody. Cool, cool, cool. All right. And next up, we have extensor digitorum. That name tells you what it does. It extends the digits. This guy is one of the really interesting muscles. You've got a kind of a counterpart in the foot, which will deal with the toes. Hands are just modified feet. So the basic muscle and skeletal structure is pretty much the same. With extensor digitorum, it also originates off the common extensor tendon on the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. This one inserts at the base of the middle and distal phalanges. So the base of your middle phalange and right there, just proximal to your fingernail on the second through the fifth digits. So we omit the thumb, we are only talking about the fingers. This muscle crosses the wrist, making it a wrist extensor, but it crosses the fingers all the way to the tips, making them finger extensors, extensor digitorum. This is the muscle when you do your little claw hand and you see those 4 tendons arise. Those 4 tendons merge to become one muscle. That's the same muscle. So it extends the fingers and it extends the wrist. So when you say, stop in the name of love before you break my heart, extensor digitorum. So let's have a look at these muscles a little bit closer. So these muscles are all extensors, so they will all be on the posterior side. And I'm not necessarily going in order, it's just kind of like as I can poke at it, but I'm gonna start with this one. Come on, this one. So looking at this muscle, note those 4 distinct tendons. That's gonna be extensor digitorum, the only one with those fancy 4 tendons. It will originate on the lateral epicondyle, and it inserts, if we look closely, at the base of the middle phalange and the base of the distal phalange. So they have 2 separate insertion points on 4 fingers. So this muscle will be able to do wrist extension because it crosses on the posterior side. It will also be responsible for finger extension. And it will also be able to help with this really cool motion, finger abduction, which is really important if you ever want to give the Vulcan salute. You've got to abduct the fingers. Extensor digitorum. Next, we have extensor carpi ulnaris. Extensor crossing on the posterior side, starting on the lateral epicondyle. This will insert at the base of the 5th metacarpal on the posterior side. Extensor carpi ulnaris, with a name like extensor carpi, will extend the wrist. It will also be responsible for ulnar deviation, which we would call adduction of the wrist. So if you've ever been in a parade, right, you know that parade wave? Yeah, that's the one. And we have wrist extension and hyperextension. Here is extensor carpi radialis brevis. We see the brevis originating on the lateral epicondyle. It will insert at the posterior aspect at the base of the 3rd metacarpal. So the one that connects to the middle finger. Because its name is extensor carpi, it will extend the wrist. So we have the same motion as extensor carpi ulnaris. And it will do wrist abduction, which is radial deviation. And probably the easiest way is just to select the tendon. There is extensor carpi radialis longus. Note, the long one doesn't start on the epicondyle, it starts on the ridge above the epicondyle. So the lateral supracondylar ridge of the humerus. With an insertion, it will have the exact same actions as the brevis, so wrist extension and wrist abduction. All right. So those are the 4 muscles that we are covering today. Those are also the last 4 muscles that we will be learning as new material. So homework for next week is going to be muscle cards for these 4 muscles, but we do need to talk a little bit about the schedule for the next few weeks. Let me think. So class this Thursday as normal, but next week, the 22nd would be the day of our lecture. That's next Monday. And then the Thursday is Thanksgiving. So we will not have class the following Thursday. So I think you guys will understand, I don't really see a reason for us to have a 1-hour online lecture next Monday if we're not going to have a lab. The entire class would just get pushed back 1 more week. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? I don't. First of all, there's no new material for us to cover, no new muscles. The second thing is anything we cover in 1 hour on Monday, then we don't see each other over the rest of the week. Then you guys have Thanksgiving and then Thanksgiving weekend, and then we come back and I don't feel like we're going to remember much of anything. So I say we just postpone next week. It's the week of Thanksgiving. We'll do Thanksgiving and then we'll come back and we will resume our next online class on the 29th. Cool. Now that I've said that in my out loud voice, I need to write that down real quick. Okay. Okay. All right. So how are we feeling, guys? About everything in general?
I'm pretty intimidated by all the origins and insertions.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out the best way for me to study. So I'm thinking of doing like practice tests on Quizlet. That's just like constantly asking me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes with the flexors and extensors of the forearm, um, I think it's because there's like 3 names, so I'm like getting mixed up which muscle is which,
Mm-hmm.
just because of all the
The
names.
only real trick with those is you've got to slow down. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you're getting to these muscles with like 3 and 4 names, just it's not a race. So take a breath and really look at the name and really think about what it's telling you. Remember, knowing what the muscle does, like flexor or extensor, that tells you what side of the arm it will be on. So if we take our time and we think about it, we will remember all of the flexors being on the front, they all start on the medial side. And all the
Right.
extensors on the back start on the lateral side. So these muscles just almost kind of twist and spiral around the forearm until they get all straight in. But it is a lot of stuff to remember. But I just remind us, take a breath, take it nice and slow. There's no rush.
I have a question about the written final on the last day of class.
Mhm.
How many questions is that?
Let me check. That's going to be on Moodle.
Oh, I tried to look, but I couldn't open it.
That's not available yet.
Yeah, not to take it, but just to figure out what.
Yeah.
It would be about.
I have a question about the take-home final.
50. There are 50 questions.
Okay, so it's like the take-home final, but it's just gonna be in person instead of take-home.
No,
What is
the written final is not in person. It's still on Moodle. So we're not coming to class to sit there and take an exam together.
Oh, so when it says written final, it's still something we do on Moodle?
It's yes, in like the before 4 times before COVID, this was a test that was written that you would, the take home test was handed to you, you went home, you did it, you brought it back. Then the written final, we would come to class and sit down and we would pass out the test and you would take the test and turn them in. With COVID, now that everything's online, the take home final I've given you, you bring it back to me. And then the written final is also online, like it's also on Moodle.
Okay, do we take that in class though, or?
No, that test
Oh,
is
okay,
going
it's still
to
something we
unlock.
do at home. Okay,
Yeah, that test is going to unlock. I'm going to, don't use the times that are on there already. I'm going to have to go through and edit those, but I'll unlock that for sometime during like week 9
okay.
or
So I guess
not
the
week
only
9 or
thing
week
in
10.
person
So
is
that
the
will open it up.
practice.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
what is
You're
the
welcome.
take-home final do again?
I think it's due this Thursday, right?
Okay.
I think so, but Thursday, November 25th.
That is Thanksgiving.
That was graded on the
supposed-
second.
It was supposed to be, you're supposed to have 2 weeks. So it's passed out or given out week 7 and then it's due week 9. But remember, we're postponing everything for a week because of Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So for it to be due week 9, you would get an extra week because of Thanksgiving, but it would be due on December 2nd.
Okay. Thank you.
So it's due December 2nd?
hmm
Okay.
I'm going to make sure that that's changed right now so it doesn't give anybody a problem. And it will be due at 2:30 before we come to class on December 2nd. Done.
And then how about the practical?
So that's what we're doing in class leading up is I'm gonna make sure that you guys have your rubrics so you understand what you're gonna be graded on, and then we're gonna do practice evaluation. So we're gonna run through the drill. But the way the evaluations will go is I will take you guys just a small group at a time. We will run through your evaluation. So I will name muscles for you to palpate. You have to identify where the muscle is on your partner's body, name the origin, name the insertion, name its actions, but also demonstrate by moving their body, demonstrate its actions. And so you should be able to describe to me what actions are happening when that muscle shortens and lengthens. Each of you will be randomly assigned 3 muscles from the list that we've gone over. And when I say randomly assign, I mean I put everything in an Excel sheet and I click the button and it's done. And that's the way it is. So I have absolutely no idea what muscles each of you is going to get. It's just whatever my Excel sheet spits out at me. What else was I going to say? There is a list on Moodle. Let me make sure that it's. It should be available to you guys. Study prep for practical exam.
Yeah, the rubric is on Moodle. It was helpful to look at that. And I guess I had a question. It says, so it's just 3 muscles total, not 3 for each of those.
Correct. Each student must demonstrate 3 muscles, period.
Great.
But you don't know what muscles those will be, so you'll need to be prepared with all the muscles that we've learned. There are some muscles that are removed from consideration. I'm trying to see if I can find that now. There it is. Okay, so now I'm unhiding kinesiology upper muscle list for practical exam. And kinesiology upper body final review.
And so just to clarify, Dave, the practical exam will happen on December 9th?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm seeing December 2nd on the practical on the syllabus says December 2nd for the practical.
Yeah, but we're pushing it out a week because we're skipping next week.
It's also showing no class on the 9th, so, or on November 25th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this coming Thursday, November 18th, we're going to practice these muscles that we've learned today and just kind of make sure that we're in general good with muscles of the entire wrist and forearm. December 2nd, your take-home finals will be due. We will prepare for the practical exam. So we are going to do drills to make sure that we understand how the practical is going to go. I don't think we're going to do a lecture on that final Monday, but then when we come in on December 9th, that will be the actual day of the evaluation. Your final exams will be due then on Moodle. So when we come to class on December 9th, the evaluations happen and your written finals will be due on Moodle. Once we are done with the practical evaluation, we are done with class. So once you've done yours, you will be free to go. Good stuff. Cool.
What if everything falls out of our brain over Thanksgiving break?
Oh,
I'm so scared. So scared, Dave.
Then we'll be seeing each other in the next kinesiology uppers class.
Yeah, right. I'll see you in the spring for lowers again. No, I'm kidding. It won't. It won't. you guys have to keep studying and keep it fresh. I'm not saying you've got to sacrifice your vacation to slave away in kinesiology world, but what I am saying is, you know, if you guys are going on a trip, bring your muscle cards and just keep looking over them. You know, turn it into a thing. Turn it into a thing. If you go in to meet family, be like, hey, you guys know I'm in massage school, right? Who wants a free arm and hand massage? And while you're sitting there massaging their arm and hand, teach them as a way to teach yourself. This is extensor carpi ulnaris right here. This is extensor radialis brevis. Keep it fresh. Make it fun. We also have my Kahoot games that I've made for muscles. We also have, somebody said Quizlet. Those are good resources. But yeah, just find ways to make it fun. Don't turn it into slave labor, but find ways to make it fun and just keep paying attention to the muscles every 2 or 3 days or so, I would say. Just do something kinesiology related to keep the words fresh in your mind. Good stuff, fun stuff,
Great stuff.
great stuff. Yay. All right. So let me ask you guys a few questions. Which muscle that we have talked about inserts on the radial tuberosity?
Biceps brachii.
Biceps brachii. Very good. Which muscle that we have talked about inserts on the styloid process of the radius?
So brachioradialis.
It is brachioradialis. Very good. Which muscle on which muscle that inserts at the crest of the greater tubercle is also an antagonist to itself? A muscle that inserts on the crest of the greater tubercle and is an antagonist to itself. Not trapezius.
Deltoid?
Is it biceps major? I mean, sorry, not biceps. Pec major.
Pectoralis major.
It's a biceps major.
You did. I'm going to let that go. Pectoralis major inserts at the crest of the greater tubercle, antagonist to itself because it does flexion and extension. What is the insertion of the deltoid? Emilia, I read your lips. Emilia got that one. I read her lips. Deltoid tuberosity.
Yeah.
Deltoid tuberosity. The deltoid shares an origin with the insertion of which muscle?
Trapezius.
Traps.
Trapezius. Very good.
Yes.
What are the actions of the trapezius?
Elevation of the scapula.
We have elevation of the scapula. What else?
Extension of the neck.
Extension of the neck.
Laterally flexed.
Lateral flexion.
Lateral flexion.
Um,
Does it do adduction of the scapula?
um,
Yes. Adduction of the scapula.
oh,
Depression of the
Also
scapula.
upwardly rotate. Oh, sorry.
Depression of the scapula. Say that again, Megan.
Upward rotation of the scapula.
Upward rotation of the scapula. There's only one more I'm missing, I think.
Did
Oh,
anyone say-
rotation of the head and neck.
Neck rotation. Very good.
But I can remember it was ipsilateral or contralateral. Just,
Put your hands
Yeah.
on the back of your neck.
uh-huh,
Feel the tension of the upper trapezius. It's
okay.
the superficial muscle. Now, rotate side to side.
And the general rule is that the
Ipsilateral.
more surface muscles will do contra rotation, correct? And the more inner ones will do ipsilateral rotation.
It's less to do with deep or superficial. It's more to do with the where that muscle is sitting, whether it will pull to the same side or pull to the opposite side.
Oh, okay.
Contralateral. Contralateral rotation, yeah. Contralateral, okay, yeah, that was. Okay.
I did happen
What's
to
our trail
notice,
guide
I
say?
guess, Ben, that those muscles tend to follow that.
Say that one more time. Muscles tend to follow.
I guess I just, maybe I just noticed that on my own or something, but yeah, the deeper muscles tend to do ipsilateral rotation and the more superficial muscles tend to do contralateral rotation. I really thought I heard that from you, but maybe I didn't.
Aren't the external obliques the ones that do lateral rotation and then internal do contralateral?
Correct.
Okay.
No, IRS. Internal rotates same. Internal obliques are ipsilateral. External obliques are contralateral.
Mhm.
I had a question about trapezius origin. Are we still saying that the inferior angle of the scapula is an origin for?
For latissimus dorsi, you mean?
Yeah,
Trapezius doesn't
Oh
touch
yeah,
the
yeah,
inferior angle. Are we talking about latissimus dorsi?
yeah. Let's just miss. Sorry.
That one really is frustrating to me.
Yeah, it says that in the trail guide, but
but
like there
you
are
see
so
where this
many
muscle
better
sits,
origins to say.
and that green line, that's the medial border of the scapula.
Yeah,
When you raise your arm up overhead and that inferior angle rotates out and you can feel it on the side, lat dorsi isn't attached to it. Lat dorsi just wraps over the front of it. So the scapula will move out from underneath it. I don't know.
would you just rather us say the other origins, the spinous processes and
Well, the
thoracolumbar?
thing is, a lot of them are going to be things like multiple choice. So,
Yeah,
and I didn't write those questions myself. So generally what I would say, the safest answer is you have to stick with what it says in the trail guide, because that is where those test questions will be coming from. So I would say for our testing purposes, yes, you will include that. But I will also say, just understand that the lats don't adhere to the scapula. They are not attached to the scapula.
right.
The scapula will roll out of the way and it will slip out from underneath the lat dorsi. So I can't explain it. I can't explain it.
Okay.
Which of the rotator cuff does not rotate?
Supraspinatus.
Supraspinatus. What is the action of subscapularis?
Medial rotation.
Medial rotation. What is the insertion of the sternocleidomastoid?
Mastoid process.
Mastoid process. What are the actions of the SCM?
Contralateral rotation.
And,
Lateral flexion.
Lateral flexion.
and,
Flexion of the head.
very good.
I have a question about that. Do we, I'm guessing we need to also specify whether it's like unilateral, lateral flex or bilateral.
Yes, because it does make a difference.
Okay,
If only one of the SCMs contract, then we cannot do neck flexion. If it's only one, it's either going to pull into lateral flexion or pull into rotation. In order to do flexion, they both have to pull together, because if they're pulling together, then we can't rotate. Right?
yeah. I
Only one of
understand
them
that.
can rotate.
Yeah.
So yes, it does make a difference. How many muscles in the abdominal group?
Rectus abdominis. Transverse. And obliques. Internal and external. 4.
4.
Yeah.
Which one is the washboard abs?
Rectus abdominis.
Rectus abdominis. What is its primary action?
Flex the trunk.
Flexion of the trunk.
Flexion, yeah.
External obliques rotate in which direction?
Contralateral.
Contralateral.
Yeah.
Internal obliques rotate in which direction?
Ipsilateral.
Very good. IRS. Internals rotate same. Name the erector spinae in order from lateral to medial.
Iliocostalis.
Spinalis, longissimus, and iliocostalis. Right?
Hold on. From lateral to medial.
Oh, lateral. I was going the wrong way. Iliocostalis,
Yes.
longissimus, and
Yes.
spinalis.
Very good. As a group, the erector spinae perform what action?
Extend the trunk.
Extension of the trunk, making them an antagonist to which muscle?
The rectus abdominis.
Very good. Very good. Which muscle originates on the infraglenoid tubercle of the scapula?
Triceps brachii.
Very good. Very good.
The long head.
The
Like,
long
yeah.
head of the triceps. Very good. The triceps are an antagonist to which muscles?
Biceps brachii, brachialis, and coracobrachialis. Yeah.
Yes. What else?
Brachyradialis.
The deltoid.
The deltoid.
Oh no, that's one.
Yeah, deltoid
Oh,
deflexor too.
yes, because they
Yes.
has elbow.
Brachioradialis, brachialis, biceps brachii, deltoid. All of these are shoulder and elbow flexors. Triceps is a shoulder and elbow extensor.
Extensors, yeah. Extensor.
Very good. Very good. Which muscle Origin. Iliac crest. Insertion, 12th rib, and transverse processes of L1 through L4.
Is that QL?
That is QL.
Yeah.
That is QL. Yeah. Which muscle originates on the transverse processes of C1 through C4 and inserts at the superior angle of the scapula?
The levator
Vader's.
scapula?
Levator
Uh,
scapula.
I see we know that one. Good, good, good. Which muscle was your beer drinking muscle?
Brachioradialis.
Brachioradialis.
Brachioradialis. Which muscle is Lat's little helper?
Teres major.
It is major.
Teres major. So teres minor belongs to which group?
Rotator cuffs.
Cuff. Rotate.
Rotator cuff. What's the origin and the insertion of teres minor?
Oh God. To there of God. Inferior angle of the scapula.
Origin and insertion of teres minor.
It inserts on the greater tubercle of the humerus, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it originates
Superior
on
border
Inferior
of
angle
the
of the scapula.
medial
But
and lateral.
uh,
Superior border of the lateral scapula. Or the
We
lateral
say the
border of the scapula.
upper 2/3
upper
of the lateral border of the scapula
yeah.
inserts on the posterior aspect of the greater tubercle of the humerus.
Yeah. Upper two-thirds of lateral scapula.
Yes. Upper 2/3 of the lateral border of the scapula, posterior aspect of the greater tubercle of the humerus. What about teres major? Origin and insertion of teres major?
inferior angle of the scapula
Yes.
to the greater tubercle of the humerus. No,
It's anterior side.
inferior angle, or in the little tubercle, the lesser tubercle. of
The
humerus.
lesser tubercle. There we go. There we go. So inferior angle and lower third of the lateral border, insertion on the crest of the lesser tubercle, because not quite on the tubercle itself, like where subscapularis inserts. Instead, we are at the crest of the lesser tubercle, just a little bit below that.
Crest, okay. Crest.
Which other muscle inserts at the crest of the lesser tubercle?
Latissimus dorsi.
Latissimus dorsi. Very good. Very good. Intercostal muscles. Which group of intercostal muscles assists with inhalation?
Sternals.
Externals. Very good. Which muscle is this right in front?
Serratus anterior. I mean, I think so. Or one.
Yes, this one.
coracobrachialis.
Sorry, coracobrachialis.
Yeah.
You weren't wrong. I just didn't crop it very well. What's the action of serratus anterior? What does that muscle do?
The punching muscle.
Punching muscle, but what does it do?
Protract scapula.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Protraction of the scapula. What is the action of coracobrachialis?
Yeah, that's the
Adduction,
like it's the glenomeral joint.
Say that again, Casey.
Sorry.
adduction,
Adduction, adduction, AD. What else?
Be arm flexion as well.
Flexion. That's it. Adduction and flexion. Maybe medial rotation. It probably assists with medial rotation as well, since it inserts on the medial side. So I would say, like, once you are laterally rotated, now the muscle contracts to pull you back into medial rotation. Very, very good. Very, very good. All right. I think you guys are going to do well. I think you guys are picking it up. Any other questions?
I need to study. I mean, it's nice, but it's a lot of information. So like, wow.
It is a lot. It is a lot of information.
Right.
But remember, the first thing that I want to remind you guys is, you know this stuff. You know this stuff because every time I ask y'all questions, y'all give me the answers. So it's in there. It may not jump straight to mind immediately. You may have to think it through. We may have to kind of palpate around and move our body around to figure out what that muscle is going to be doing. But you know the information. So trust yourselves. Trust yourself. You know it.
All right.
When we get to class this week, we're going to do lots of just study and review. That's the name of the game. We've covered all the new material, so I just want to make it a nice, fun review day.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Homework due next, well, not next week. Next week's Thanksgiving, but next time we come back to class, extensor carpi radialis, longus and brevis, extensor carpi ulnaris, and extensor digitorum. Those are your last 4 muscle cards that will be due. If there's no other questions, you guys, that's all we have for today. But you guys enjoy your rainy Monday, and I will see you all on Thursday.
Okay. If I have question, I'm going to ask you.
Perfect.
And also,
Please do.
I think so. Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Later.
Bye.